the legislature in October of 2001 and asked to bail out these two hospitals in Tucson because their emergency rooms were going to close because they were inundated with illegals and the services. And so it was $20 million. And when we did that, we just pledged to not let that stuff happen anymore. So in 2002, that's when the legislation started on all the illegal immigrant stuff. That's when it was the last straw. It was the fall of 2001, and we started running legislation. We had a press conference with Russell and me, Russell Pierce and me. I think it was Randy Graff, and we talked about various issues. Russell talked about law enforcement. I talked about the demand on the welfare system, and I think Randy talked about education. And we talked about how the billions of dollars that were going to that, and how it was crippling our budget. And as you can see, that's what we had to get under control. And it was really about money, and it was about the livelihood and lifestyles of those of us who are legal Americans. And so we recognize that if you do blanket amnesty and you change the political landscape, you will move us into socialism. You will have, and this is what happens when you have more than half of the people on welfare get drawing checks from the government. It'll just rip this country apart. So I look at it, and how we looked at it then is it will be the changing of America and not for the good. And so we've got to fight that battle on all fronts. We have to fight.
I've been talking about, I've followed history, I've studied history, and this is exactly what happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. They ran people out of one part of the country, I think they called it the Pale Settlement, and ran them in on the white Christians in Russia, and they ended up setting up the Soviet Union and killing 60 million white Russians. And I'm sorry, but I see the same thing happening here. These illegals, and part of it's our government. I tried to hire an illegal who had worked for, I was running a company for a friend of mine up in Phoenix, and this guy got caught and got deported. And so I went to INS to try to get him back legally. I couldn't do it, Russell.
Well, I'm Gary, but I appreciate the mix-up.
I'm sorry.
Well, I understand, but you talked about the ethnic cleansing that goes on. I would hope that that wouldn't be something that would be in our future. I don't think it would be. There are too many Americans. Not too many. There's a lot of Americans who are trained and have guns. And in Arizona, we have the right to arm ourselves and protect ourselves and carry those. Now, obviously, we have to obey laws. We can't assault anyone. But my point is, unlike the folks in Russia, they couldn't defend themselves. Honestly, I think the military is on our side of this. I mean, we're on the side of the Constitution. That's how I look at it. We're just plain on the side of the Constitution, and that's the document we defend. We love this ground, but the reality is we could move this country to other parts of the world, and with our Constitution, we're going to flourish. We're going to flourish economically. We're just blessed because of our Constitution. And as long as that's what we're willing to fight for, and risk our lives for, we're going to be fine in this country. But we've got to get rid of, through elections, we've got to get rid of this nonsense.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, when I was 17 years old. And I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm not in the Army anymore, but I still, I'm still under that oath. And
well, I chose to live in communities and own businesses which were frankly grounded to the military. I lived in Sierra Vista for 4 years, where Fort Huachuca is, and I lived in Yuma 16 years, where the Marine Corps Air Station is, and also the Yuma Proving Ground. They had 2 military bases. And what a wonderful environment to raise your children, the respect they have for the flag, for our country. I mean, and from all nationalities that are, I'm not saying not nationalities, but all races, religions, those, who are raised in military communities are just they're just blessed to be able to have that environment. You see it in the schools. You don't see them degrading service to the country. It's a whole different environment. So I was able to raise my kids, my first three, and then we moved back to Mesa in that environment. It was a great thing, and I think your listeners ought to be grateful to be here in Arizona to have the military bases we have, because by and large, the flag is respected. We see a few demonstrations every once in a while where people do things to the flag, and I'm glad they have free speech. As long as it's their flag and not my flag, we won't have a problem. If they mess with my flag, the one I own, then we're going to have a problem.
Now, let me get back to McCain. Should he be replaced? Is he doing a good job? I just had on Ruth McClung. She's running for Congress too, and might get an input on her. What you think about her? She says she's a conservative Republican that a Democrat could vote for. I don't know how you feel about that, but
well, a Democrat can vote for her in the general election, obviously, but not the primary. And I think Grijalva should be replaced. He called for boycotting Arizona. Talk about not thinking that through. But when it comes to John McCain, J.D. Hayworth, Jim Deacon, I stay out of that race. As far as I like them all. I've been with them all. I've known John McCain a long, long time. I've known J.D. I've worked on both. Back 20-some years ago. Probably what Republican didn't work on John McCain's helped get him elected if they were involved at all. But the point I think is we have a contested race, and it's really the first real contested race for John McCain in a primary, I think, in a while, other than the presidential race. And I told them all that I'm going to stay out of their race. I've got one to run myself, and there's a lot of people out there that like Jim Deacon, a lot of people like J.D. Hayworth, and a lot of people like John McCain, and I think they appreciate that I just stay out of it, let them slug it out, don't use my influence with people, and that's what I've tried to do, is just stay out of it, let them run on their records the things they've done, and let people decide. So that's what I've chosen to do. So, so you're not going to get me to comment. Just like when the governor had Dean Martin, who's a friend, and John Munger, who's a friend, and I just asked the governor, hey, you've got a race to run, I've got a race to run. Now those people have gotten out of it, and I'm glad they did, because I felt that she just was getting stronger and stronger, and I was excited. And I've got to tell you, as it relates to Jan Brewer, our governor, I don't think there's a governor in our history in my history in Arizona, other than Jack Williams, who I had a great deal of respect for. He was the governor when I was in high school, and you look back on his history, he was a really solid governor. Mike Symington did a lot of good things too, but I will tell you that Jan Brewer has just been a stalwart, and in history will look fondly on her. She has been one outstanding governor. In the short amount of time she's been thrown into it, in that first year, how difficult that was, as she got her feet on the ground, but she's got her arms around this office, and I think that we in Arizona should be so proud and are so fortunate in the way she's handled so many of the issues, not just immigration. And we should elect her with the largest majority we've ever elected a governor, in my view.
I'm very happy with her too. There's a lot of talk going around in other states about this whole 10th Amendment situation, and I think Arizona is being a leader in that.
Oh, and here's a funny thing. stop and take a look at how many people have been in the on national programs from Arizona.